Did Ryan Reynolds ditch Blake Lively at the premiere of Another Simple Favor to save his own career?
They will prepare for that in a million different ways. They will tell journalists what they can and cannot ask. Her PR firm will only walk her up to certain friendly journalists.
Stop everything, Chris Evans just exposed a shocking Marvel scandal. And it leads straight to Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. That's right. Hollywood's golden couple is facing serious accusations, allegedly pulling off a Marvel scheme so outrageous it could destroy their spotless reputation. And the one spilling the truth, none other than Captain America himself, behind the glamour and flashing cameras. Blake Lively is being called the mastermind of a hidden plot lurking in the depths of the MCU.
Insiders are spilling on the real reason why Ryan Reynolds left Blake Lively alone on the red carpet amid the Anna Kendrick beef, and it's all about money.
Why would she do it? Was it all a calculated move to steal the Marvel spotlight for herself? The alleged motive, pure greed for Marvel fame and fortune. This jaw-dropping expose has everything: hidden deals, leaked messages, shocking betrayals, and we're only scratching the surface. Did America's sweetheart really deceive the MCU and pull Ryan into the scheme? Or is there an even bigger twist lurking in the shadows?
Several other actors attended premieres at South by without their spouses or significant others. I mean, one, why are you responding?
Get ready, because these bombshell revelations are about to rock Hollywood to its core, trust me. You won't want to miss this. Blake Lively stepped onto the red carpet for what should have been a career-defining moment, a triumphant return, meant to silence her critics and prove her star power. But instead, it turned into one of the most humiliating nights of her life.
Blake attended with her cast and filmmakers and had a great time. Several other actors attended premieres at South by without their spouses or significant others.
She arrived at the Another Simple Favor premiere expecting admiration, expecting the cameras to capture her like they always had, expecting Hollywood to welcome her back as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The energy was off. From the moment she stepped in, the photographers still snapped their shots, but the excitement completely gone.
You're clearly unnerved. You didn't even need to respond. It's like, I wasn't that surprised that Ryan wasn't there. It wasn't his movie.
The smiles she got were forced, the conversations awkward, and the entire atmosphere felt heavy, so heavy that even Blake, with all her media training, couldn't brush it off. But the real shock, protesters standing right outside the event, holding a sign that read, "Justice for Justin Baldon," and beneath it, the damning accusation, Blake lied.
It was weird that Ryan was there and it ends with us. If he shows up to every one of her movies that has nothing to do with, I think it would be worse reaction. I do.
This wasn't just some random heckler or an upset fan. This was something far more serious. A direct hit to her credibility. A public display of the backlash that had been simmering for months. Hollywood thrives on illusion, but no amount of charm or carefully crafted smiles could erase the bold, unforgiving message outside that premiere. For months, Blake had done everything in her power to act like the storm around her wasn't real.
So I can't fault him for not showing up. The fact that he's responding is interesting. It shows they're paying attention and they're unnerved.
The legal drama, the PR disaster, the whispers of a crumbling marriage with Ryan Reynolds. The backlash from her feud with Baldonia was all spiraling out of control. But Blake kept pushing forward as if maintaining appearances could erase the damage. She seemed certain that Hollywood would play along, that the industry would fall back in line and let her control the story. But this time, Hollywood wasn't listening. The industry had officially turned its back on her.
I stand by my report, and be prepared. Don't be mad at the messenger that I told you Anna Kendrick's not very nice either.
The media had stopped protecting her, no longer twisting the narrative in her favor. But the worst part, the very people she once considered colleagues, friends, and allies were now keeping their distance, making it painfully clear they wanted nothing to do with her. And then came the final blow, when Anna Kendrick, her co-star and longtime industry peer, was asked what it was like to work with her again.
Blake Lively's done awful things to Justin and needs to pay the price in court. We'll find it out. But what I'm trying to warn you is, apparently Anna's no angel either.
It was a kind of easy, scripted question Hollywood stars answer with a polished smile and a rehearsed line, even when reality is far from perfect. But Kendrick didn't even bother to fake it, just for words that hit harder than any tabloid scandal or public expose. No warmth, no courtesy, no attempt to soften the blow.
I'm telling you, it's more than just a little, oh, she's annoying.
The indifference in Kendrick's voice, the total lack of effort to even fake a friendship, it spoke volumes. She didn't want to talk about Blake Lively. She didn't want to be put in a position to defend her. and she certainly wasn't willing to play along with yet another forced Hollywood friendship just to boost press tours and box office numbers. And Kendrick wasn't alone, others were making their feelings just as clear.
Get your ego in check. All you actors, get your egos in check. And yeah, I'm gonna call out actors who have way too big of an ego.
Henry Golding, another of Blake's co-stars, was asked about reuniting with the cast, and his response, pure sarcasm. What could go wrong? That smirk, that barely hidden dig, it was all the confirmation the public needed. Blake Lively wasn't just fighting to save her image. She was losing the respect of the very people she needed in her corner. Hollywood wasn't just turning away, it was done with her.
My guess is she's not going to bring him because he's almost more disliked than she is, and that her promo game is just to pretend that she's really scared of the public now, when she was the person who initially wanted all of this to be publicized because she was so confident in her power and her husband's power.
Hollywood's biggest stars stay on top by building relationships, forming alliances, and maintaining carefully crafted networks of mutual benefit. But Blake's reputation had become radioactive, and those alliances were crumbling fast, even. The fashion world, once obsessed with her, was now quietly backing away.
Blake Lively apparently fought for top billing in this film. And these are things that we don't even consider as the public, but even when you see a movie poster, that's a fight between people of who's going to be on the movie poster, who's going to be presented as the star of this film.
The luxury brands that once flaunted her as the face of their campaigns were quietly severing ties. Hollywood agents were warning studios against casting her, whispering that she had become a financial liability. Producers saw the growing tension around her and wanted no part of the drama. And even at South by Southwest, where she desperately tried to reclaim a sense of normalcy, the cracks in her image were impossible to ignore.
And now that we know that Blake Lively is quite aggressive in general during these movie negotiations, it was revealed that she was similarly aggressive about The Simple Favor 2, and she wanted to be featured prominently.
She waved at fans, signed autographs, and flashed that same picture-perfect smile, but it was all an act. Blake Lively wasn't in control anymore. Her entire career was built on the illusion of effortless elegance, the image of a poised, untouchable star. But illusions only last as long as people believe in them. And no one believed in Blake Lively now.
They will prepare for that a million different ways. They will tell journalists what they can and cannot ask. Her PR firm will only walk her up to certain friendly journalists.
The premiere of another Simple Favor wasn't the grand victory she had envisioned. It was something far worse. A public declaration that Hollywood was done with her. This wasn't just a small bump in the road. It wasn't a minor scandal she could fix with a carefully crafted interview or a perfectly timed public appearance. This felt like the end of an era.
So this apprehension is kind of, like I said, just trying to make people feel bad. And I think it's kind of perfect karma that now there's this apparent friction between her and Anna Kendrick, real friction with her co-star.
Blake Lively was once a Hollywood A-lister, a fashion icon, a box office magnet, a name that mattered. But in this industry, the second an actress becomes a risk, she's forgotten. And right now, Blake Lively was a risk Hollywood's patience had worn thin. And a Kendrick's icy dismissal wasn't just personal, it was business.
She wanted Blake Lively to address her ongoing battle with Baldoni.
Anna Kendrick wasn't just done with Blake Lively as a person, she was done with her as a brand. And Hollywood had made the same call. Blake might keep pushing forward, attending events, and pretending to have control, but the truth is undeniable. She's no longer in charge, no longer valuable, and no longer someone Hollywood cares to shield.
There obviously now is this big elephant that's in the room that no one wants to acknowledge, and they're going to walk this red carpet and not acknowledge it unless, of course, Ryan Reynolds walks the red carpet with her.
The world sees right through her now. No red carpet, no stage smile. No perfectly crafted PR stunt can undo that. Blake Lively walked onto the red carpet expecting a grand comeback, a moment to reclaim her Hollywood throne. But the energy was off, the smiles around her were forced, the excitement nowhere to be found. The industry that once celebrated her now watched in silence, not as a star on the rise, but as someone they had already left behind.
So she's a serial fraudster. That's called fraud.
The carefully crafted illusion she had spent years perfecting was falling apart right before her eyes. Every step she took, every pose she struck wasn't met with backlash. It was met with something far worse, indifference, the kind that signals a permanent shift. The moment Hollywood silently agrees someone no longer matters. Blake Lively had built her career on being the woman everyone wanted to be around. But now, She stood in a room full of people who were already looking. Past her.
Ryan, have you been doing all these ads live during our podcast?
Yes, of course. Anything for Strikeforce 5.
Outside the event, a protester held up a sign that erased any lingering doubt. Justice for Justin Baldoni. Blake lied. It was a level of public humiliation no Lister ever expects to direct. Personal attack that shattered any illusion of her untouchable status. This wasn't just a disappointed fan upset over a movie, this was a statement about her as a person. And it wasn't just one voice.
Why is she wrong? We could all see it with our own eyes, what was happening on that red carpet and inside the premiere.
This wasn't just one protester, it was a sign of something much bigger for months. Blake had acted like the scandals and legal battles were just minor setbacks. Something she could smooth over with her usual polished PR tricks, but Hollywood doesn't forgive, and it never forgets. The industry had already made up its mind. And then came Anna Kendrick, once seen as Blake's friendly co-star, delivering a statement. So brutally dismissive, it instantly became the moment of the night.
There has always been this weird tension between Anna and Blake. Always. There's interviews which they have done where it's just so uncomfortable.
When asked if she would ever work with Blake again, Anna Kendrick didn't even try to hide her disinterest. Oh, you know, that was it. For words cold, indifferent, final. No enthusiasm, no warmth. Not even a forced attempt at professionalism. It was a quiet rejection, but it spoke louder than any headline. That moment set the tone for the night, and there was no coming back from it. Hollywood has a way of deciding, collectively and without warning, when someone is no longer worth the effort. And Blake Lively had just become that person. Her charm, her perfectly crafted image, her ability to spin media narratives, none of it mattered anymore. No one felt sorry for her. No one was wondering what she'd do next. She was simply being left behind. She knew this feeling. She had watched it happen to others, women who had once been everywhere, only to wake up one day and realize the industry had moved on, and now it was her turn. She had built an empire on public perception, controlling every detail of her career, her personal life, and the way the world saw her. But what happens when the world stops looking? What happens when Hollywood decides you're no longer useful? For Blake, the answer was unfolding in real time. She wasn't being publicly shamed. She wasn't being dragged through a media storm, no. Hollywood was doing something far worse. It was erasing her, second by second, as if she had never mattered at all. The premiere had made it painfully clear. The calculated distance from her co-stars, the disinterested press, the fans who no longer clamored to see her the way they once had, it was all unmistakable. Even the photographers, who used to fight for the perfect shot of her, seemed indifferent. They still took her pictures, of course, but they weren't selling the way they used to. No one was looking for the latest Blake Lively moment anymore. She could feel it happening that slow, agonizing slipping away. It wasn't a dramatic fall from grace. Not a single scandal that shattered everything at once. It was something worse. A slow, steady erasure. When she left the event, she knew the industry wouldn't be talking about her the next day. The headlines wouldn't be about her outfit, her performance, or even her presence at the premiere. Instead, they would focus on Anna Kendrick's cold dismissal, Henry Golding's smirk, and the quiet but undeniable shift happening around her. Blake had spent years meticulously crafting her image and effortless elegance, a cool, untouchable presence, the actress who didn't chase attention but naturally commanded it. But now, the truth was unavoidable. Hollywood didn't need her anymore. And without Hollywood, what was left? Her career had never been built on daring, transformative performances. She wasn't the actress known for her range or for taking risks. Her power came from something far more fragile, her image. And now, that image was fading. She had always believed she was too careful, too strategic, too smart to let this happen. But no one in Hollywood is untouchable. The industry only keeps people around as long as they are useful. And right now, Blake Lively wasn't bringing anything the industry couldn't get from someone younger, fresher, and far less complicated. The signs were already there. Her endorsements were slipping away. Luxury brands that once fought to have her as the face of their campaigns were quietly moving on. The problem with fashion is that it's obsessed with what's next. And Blake Lively was no longer next. The industry's silence wasn't just professional, it was personal. The people who once sought out her company were stepping back, not because of any dramatic scandal, but because Hollywood survives by aligning itself with power, and Blake Lively's power was gone. She had felt it in the way the press handled her that night, the glowing headlines, the breathless articles about her effortless charm all missing. In their place, stories about who wasn't reacting to her. The body language of the people forced to stand beside her. The Hollywood elite who were no longer standing with her obsolescence. That was the word. It was something she had never prepared for. She had spent years assuming she was different, that her ability to control her own narrative would protect her from the inevitable. But Hollywood has no loyalty. It rewards what is useful and discards what is not. And the worst part, she could feel it happening in real time. It wasn't an overnight collapse. It was something more insidious, a gradual erosion of influence, a slow, painful realization that the industry she had given everything to had already moved on without her. The quiet distancing of people she once considered allies. The slow realization that fewer doors were opening, that fewer people were calling. It wasn't that she had been exiled, it was that no one was choosing her anymore. The premiere had been a test, a way to measure whether she could still command the kind of attention she once did. And the results were undeniable. The industry was watching, but not in admiration. They were observing, waiting to see if she still had the power to turn the tide in her favor. The answer was clear. She didn't. She had miscalculated for months. She had convinced herself that the controversy surrounding her feud with Justin Baldon, the whispers about her marriage, the growing sense that her name carried more baggage than prestige were manageable, that she could outlast them, rise above them, force the world to see her the way she wanted to be seen. But the industry had already decided, and once Hollywood decides, there's no going back. She saw it in the way people spoke to her that night, the polite but detached interactions, the obligatory small talk that never extended beyond what was necessary. There were no hushed whispers of excitement when she entered the room. No eager photographers scrambling to get the perfect shot. The warmth that once surrounded her like a protective shield had been replaced with something colder dash indifference dot, and that indifference was lethal, not scandal, not outrage, just quiet disinterest. The brands had moved on. The directors had moved on. The audience had moved on dot, and now, for the first time in her career, Blake Lively had to ask herself a question she had never considered before. What happens when the world stops looking? For years, she had controlled the conversation. She had fun narratives in her favor, presented herself exactly as she wanted to be seen. But this wasn't about image anymore. This wasn't about carefully crafted PR moves or well-timed social media posts. This was about something much bigger relevance. And once Hollywood decides you're no longer relevant, no press tour, no Instagram post, no red carpet moment can save you. For the first time, Blake Lively was facing something she had never prepared for. She was fading. Not in a dramatic, explosive way, not in a scandalous, headline-grabbing fall from grace, but in the way that matters most in Hollywood, in the way that makes you forgettable. And in this town, being forgotten is the only thing worse than being hated.